I've always prided myself on being the pillar of my family. From the moment I met Laura, I knew she was the one. We built a life together, brick by brick, creating a home filled with love, laughter, and unwavering trust. Our 2 children are the light of my life, and every day I strive to be the husband and father they deserve. Work keeps me busy, but I relish the challenges it brings. I've always been confident in my ability to provide and protect my family. Laura, on the other hand, has her own way of handling things. She's fiercely independent, sometimes to a fault, and her straightforwardness can border on abrasive. But I loved her for it, her strength, her passion, her unapologetic nature. Our weekends were sacred. Saturday mornings meant breakfast together, the kids' soccer games, and lazy afternoons. Sundays were for family dinners and movie nights. It was a routine that worked, a rhythm that kept us grounded amidst the chaos of everyday life. Lately, though, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Laura seemed distant, preoccupied. Her laughter was less frequent, her smiles forced. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to work stress or the pressures of raising teenagers, but the nagging doubt lingered. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I found Laura in the living room, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. She was texting someone, her face illuminated by the screen's glow. I respected her privacy, always had, but tonight felt different. There was a tension in the air, an unspoken tension that made my heart race. "Everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her eyes meeting mine for a brief moment before darting away. "Yeah, just some work stuff," she replied curtly, returning her attention to her phone. Days turned into weeks, and the subtle shifts in Laura's behavior became harder to ignore. Mornings that once started with her radiant smile now greeted me with curt responses and a distant gaze. Our conversations, once filled with dreams and laughter, dwindled to terse exchanges about daily chores and schedules. It was as if a fog had settled between us, obscuring the warmth that had always defined our relationship. One Thursday evening, I decided to surprise Laura with a home-cooked dinner. I believed that sometimes, all it took was a little effort to bridge the growing gap. As I prepared her favorite lasagna, I noticed the absence of her usual enthusiasm. She barely acknowledged my presence, absorbed in her phone as she scrolled through social media. I tried to strike up a conversation, but her responses were short and disinterested. After dinner, I suggested we watch a movie together, hoping to rekindle our connection. She agreed reluctantly, choosing a film neither of us had seen before. Throughout the movie, her mind seemed elsewhere, her laughter forced and hollow. Halfway through, she excused herself, claiming she needed to make a phone call. I watched her go, a sinking feeling settling in my chest. Curiosity gnawed me, but I respected her privacy. Later that night, as I lay in bed, the silence was deafening. I couldn't shake the unease that had been building inside me. It wasn't just Laura's distant behavior, there was something more, something lurking beneath the surface that I couldn't quite grasp. The following weekend, I decided to take the kids to their grandparents' house, giving Laura some space and hoping it would alleviate the tension at home. As I watched them play in the backyard, my mind wandered back to Laura. Was it work stress? Was she unhappy? I wanted to believe it was something we could work through, as we always had. But fate had other plans. On Monday morning, as I was leaving for work, I noticed Laura was unusually late getting ready. She seemed flustered, her movements hurried and uncoordinated. When I asked if everything was all right, she dismissed my concerns with a curt "I'm fine." Her eyes darted away, avoiding mine, leaving me with more questions than answers. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to keep a closer eye on our routines. Little did I know, the facade of perfection I had built our lives upon was beginning to crumble, revealing secrets that would challenge everything I believed about my marriage and the woman I loved. The days that followed were a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I wanted to believe that Laura was just going through a rough patch, a temporary lapse that we could navigate together. On the other, the persistent doubts gnawed at me, refusing to be silenced. Every curt response, every evasive glance, fueled my growing unease. One evening, I decided to address the elephant in the room. We were sitting in the kitchen, the aroma of Laura's attempted dinner filling the air. I took a deep breath, summoning the courage to speak my mind. "Laura, we need to talk," I began, trying to keep my voice calm and steady. She looked up from her plate, her expression guarded. "About what?" "About us. Lately, things haven't been the same. You seem distant, distracted. Is something bothering you?" I asked, searching her eyes for any sign of honesty. She sighed, her frustration evident. "You're always so quick to jump to conclusions. Maybe I just need some space." Space. The word hung between us, heavy and suffocating. I nodded slowly, masking my disappointment. "If that's what you need, I understand. But please, don't shut me out." Laura rolled her eyes, her demeanor shifting from defensive to downright hostile. "I'm not shutting you out. Maybe you should focus on your own issues instead of blaming me for everything." Her words stung, the bitterness in her tone cutting deeper than I expected. I felt a pang of hurt, but I refused to let it show. Instead, I leaned back, meeting her gaze with unwavering resolve. "You know I'm here for you, no matter what. We're a team, Laura. Whatever it is, we can face it together." She scoffed, pushing her chair back abruptly. "A team? Don't make me laugh. You're so wrapped up in your work and your duties as the perfect husband that you've forgotten what it means to be supportive." The conversation ended there, the tension thick in the air. I sat alone at the table long after Laura had left, replaying our exchange over and over in my mind. Her accusations were baseless, yet there was a truth in her words that I couldn't ignore. Had I been neglecting her? Had my focus on providing and protecting our family blinded me to her needs? As the night wore on, I found myself restless, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. Determined to find answers, I decided to dig deeper into Laura's recent behavior. Little did I know, my quest for the truth would lead me down a path filled with deception, betrayal, and heartache. The restless nights continued, each one stretching longer than the last. Sleep became a fleeting luxury as my mind raced with unanswered questions and a mounting sense of dread. Laura's behavior had grown increasingly erratic, late nights at work that she couldn't explain, hushed phone conversations, and an ever-present tension that seemed to permeate every corner of our home. One Friday evening, I decided to take a different approach. Instead of confronting Laura directly, I opted to observe. I arranged to work late, using the excuse of an important project deadline. The extra hours would give me the opportunity to watch over our home without raising suspicion. As the clock struck 8, I returned to find the house unusually quiet. Laura was nowhere to be seen in the living room or the kitchen. I called out her name, but there was no response. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I grabbed my keys and headed towards her bedroom, hoping she was simply tired and had retired early. Pushing open the door, I was met with an unexpected sight. Laura was sitting at the vanity, her phone pressed against her ear, a flushed face and evasive eyes betraying her calm exterior. Before I could gather my thoughts, she ended the call abruptly, noticing my presence. "Hey, babe. I was just finishing up some things for work," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "Laura, where have you been tonight? You've been gone later than usual, and I couldn't reach you." She scoffed, rolling her eyes as if my concern was an inconvenience. "Honestly, Mike, can't you trust me? I'm not out having some wild party. I just needed some alone time." Her dismissive tone stung, but I refused to back down. Alone time is one thing, but disappearing for hours without any explanation is another. If something's going on, I need to know. Laura's facade began to crumble. Her eyes narrowed, and her demeanor shifted from defensive to hostile. "Why are you always so controlling? Just because I'm not handing you a to-do list doesn't mean I'm hiding something." Frustration bubbled up inside me. "I'm not trying to control you, Laura. I'm worried. You've been acting differently for weeks." She stood abruptly, knocking the chair back with a clatter. "Maybe you should worry about your own stuff instead of sticking your nose into mine. I'm tired of you acting like the perfect husband who knows everything." The room was thick with tension, the air almost electric with unspoken accusations. I felt a mix of anger and helplessness, my confidence wavering as doubt began to seep in. Was I overreacting? Had I missed something crucial? Determined to find answers, I decided to take matters into my own hands. The next morning, I enlisted the help of a close friend, Jake, who worked in IT and had the skills to discreetly check Laura's phone. My heart pounded with a mixture of fear and anticipation as Jake assured me he'd respect our privacy. A few hours later, Jake called with the results. My hands trembled as he relayed what he had found: numerous messages between Laura and a man named Ethan. The exchanges were flirtatious, laden with innuendo, and hinted at secret meetings. My worst fears began to materialize, but there was something else, a name that sent chills down my spine. Ethan? I whispered, the name echoing in my mind. Is that the same Ethan who used to babysit the kids? Jake nodded. Yeah, he mentioned something about catching up and hanging out. It doesn't look good, Mike. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Ethan had always been a reliable presence in our lives, a trusted friend who had been part of our family for years. The idea that Laura could betray that trust was almost unbearable. That afternoon, I confronted Laura with the evidence. Her reaction was swift and vehement. How dare you invade my privacy, she screamed, her voice cracking with rage. You're no better than those hypocrites at work. I stood my ground, holding up the phone with the incriminating messages. Laura, we need to talk about this. Who is Ethan, and what's going on between you two? She lunged at me, her face contorted with fury. Stay out of my business, Mike. You have no right to question me. In that moment, the person I had trusted most in the world was tearing our marriage apart with lies and deceit. My confidence as the protector of our family felt shattered, replaced by a profound sense of betrayal and sorrow. The man I thought I knew so well was now a stranger, and our family's foundation was beginning to crumble beneath us. The days following Laura's vehement denial were a blur of sleepless nights and relentless worry. Every glance she threw my way felt like a dagger, her once warm demeanor now replaced with cold indifference. I couldn't escape the image of her angry face, the way she lashed out when confronted. It was as if she was deliberately pushing me away, building walls higher with each passing day. Determined to get to the bottom of this, I decided to approach the situation differently. Instead of direct confrontation, I chose to observe from a distance, hoping that Laura would reveal her true intentions on her own. I maintained my usual routine, working hard, being present for the kids, and trying to keep the peace at home. But beneath the surface, anxiety gnawed at me, making it difficult to focus on anything else. One Saturday afternoon, I noticed Laura's car wasn't in the driveway at our usual time. It was unlike her to deviate from our established schedule without a good reason. My concern deepened as I called her phone, only to receive her voicemail. I left a message, hoping she'd return my call, but hours passed with no response. The unease that had been building inside me finally erupted into a palpable tension. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Using the information Jake had uncovered, I traced the messages back to Ethan's address. The thought of Ethan, a man our family had trusted and welcomed into our lives, being involved with Laura was almost too much to bear. With a heavy heart, I drove to Ethan's place, my mind racing with questions and fears. When I arrived, Ethan greeted me at the door with a nervous smile. Mike, what brings you here? I wasted no time. We need to talk, Ethan. What is your relationship with Laura? Ethan's facade crumbled under the weight of my scrutiny. It's not what you think, he began hesitantly. Laura and we reconnected recently. It's been a difficult time for both of us. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. A difficult time? Is that why you've been meeting in secret? Why she's been distant with me? Ethan looked down, avoiding my gaze. I never meant for it to go this far. Laura was lonely, and I got caught up in helping her. Before I could respond, Laura herself appeared at the entrance, her expression a mix of defiance and desperation. Mike, what are you doing here? Her sudden appearance only fueled my anger. You wanted help, Ethan. That's why you've been sneaking around. How long has this been going on? Laura took a step forward, her voice trembling. It's not like that. Mike, please, listen to me. But I couldn't hear her. The betrayal cut deep, and my protective instincts surged forth. Protective? Protecting our family from what, Laura? From your infidelity? Tears welled in her eyes as she tried to explain, but the damage was done. The man I had trusted implicitly was now entangled in a web of lies and deceit. I felt my world collapsing around me, the foundation of our marriage crumbling beneath the weight of her actions. Ethan stepped back, his role in this drama finally exposed. Mike, I truly didn't mean for any of this to happen. Laura was going through a lot, and I thought I was helping. I shook my head in disbelief. Helping? By betraying our marriage? By cheating with my wife? The room was thick with tension, the air heavy with unspoken emotions. Laura looked between me and Ethan, her facade finally breaking. I didn't want to hurt you, Mike. I was confused, and I didn't know how to handle it. My mind raced, grappling with the reality of the situation. The man I had considered a friend was implicated in this betrayal, and Laura, the woman I had vowed to love and protect, had chosen to stray. The sense of responsibility I felt as the family's protector was now overshadowed by a profound sense of loss and anger. As I stood there, processing the depth of the betrayal, I realized that the path ahead would be fraught with pain and difficult decisions. The life we had built together was hanging by a thread, and I was left to pick up the pieces of a shattered trust. The days following the confrontation were a haze of emotional turmoil. Laura retreated into herself, her once vibrant presence now overshadowed by a cold detachment. The kids sensed the tension, their innocent questions and worried glances adding to the weight I carried each day. I tried to maintain my composure, holding on to the confidence and protectiveness that had always defined me. But inside, I was unraveling. One Wednesday evening, after the kids had gone to bed, I found myself restless. The house was eerily quiet, the silence amplifying my unease. I decided to take a walk, hoping that the fresh air would clear my mind. As I strolled through our neighborhood, my thoughts kept drifting back to Laura and Ethan. The unanswered questions loomed large, and I needed answers. I recalled that Laura had mentioned staying late at her art studio more frequently. Perhaps there was something there that could shed light on her sudden behavior. Determined, I made my way to the studio, parking my car discreetly a few blocks away. The building was a modest two-story structure, its windows revealing glimpses of canvases and sculptures in various stages of completion. I approached quietly, the cool night air carrying the faint sound of classical music from within. Carefully, I peeked through the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of Laura. To my surprise, I saw her in the main studio, but she wasn't alone. Standing beside her was a younger man, Ethan, no doubt. They were engaged in an intense conversation, their body language too close for mere friendship. My heart pounded in my chest as I watched them. The sight confirmed my worst fears, but there was something more unsettling. Ethan wasn't just any man, he was someone our family had trusted implicitly. The betrayal cut deeper knowing that it involved someone we considered part of our inner circle. I decided to wait, hoping to gather more information before making any rash decisions. Minutes felt like hours as I observed their interaction. Eventually, Laura excused herself, stepping outside for a breath of fresh air. Ethan lingered, his expression conflicted. Summoning my courage, I approached them. "Ethan, we need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Ethan glanced at me, surprise etched across his face. "Mike, I didn't expect you here." Laura rejoined us, her demeanor shifting from defiance to a weary resignation. "What is this about?" she asked, her tone tinged with exhaustion. I took a deep breath, holding back the flood of anger and hurt. "I saw you both here tonight. Care to explain what's going on?" Ethan shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. "Mike, it's not what it looks like." I clenched my fists, struggling to maintain my composure. "Then what is it, Ethan? Because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like an affair." Laura stepped forward, her eyes pleading for understanding. "Mike, please. Let me explain." Before she could continue, Ethan interrupted. "Mike, Laura and it's complicated. I never meant for things to go this far. My mind raced, trying to piece together the puzzle of Laura's recent behavior. The late nights, the secretive meetings, the emotional distance, it all pointed to something more than just a rough patch in our marriage. Complicated? I echoed, frustration evident in my voice. You've been cheating on me, Laura. With someone you shouldn't be involved with. Tears welled up in Laura's eyes, her facade finally cracking. I didn't mean for it to happen, Mike. I was lonely, and Ethan was there for me. Ethan looked down, guilt written all over his face. I should have stepped back, but Laura reached out to me. I didn't want to see her suffer alone. The reality of the situation hit me like a ton of bricks. The woman I had vowed to love and protect was betraying our marriage, and it involved someone we had trusted implicitly. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, but beneath it all, there was a flicker of determination. I need some time to process this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. We need to figure out where we go from here. As I turned to leave, Laura reached out, her hand trembling. Mike, please. Don't let this destroy us. I hesitated, the love I still felt battling with the pain of her actions. I don't know if I can, Laura. But right now, I need space to think. Walking away from them, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. The twists and turns of our marriage had led us to this breaking point, and the path forward was anything but clear. My role as the confident protector felt compromised, my emotions a tangled mess of love, anger, and sorrow. The family hearth I had always guarded was now in jeopardy, and I was left to navigate the uncertain terrain of betrayal and heartbreak. As I drove home, the streets blurred by, mirroring the confusion and turmoil inside me. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but one thing was certain: I had to confront the truth, no matter how painful it might be, to protect the family I so deeply loved. The aftermath of that tense confrontation lingered in the air, a heavy fog that refused to lift. Laura and Ethan had retreated into their own corners, the once vibrant energy of our home now subdued by suspicion and resentment. I tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy for the sake of our children, but every interaction felt strained, every smile forced. One Sunday morning, I decided to take the kids on a surprise outing to the park. Watching them laugh and play under the clear blue sky offered a brief respite from the turmoil at home. Their innocent joy was a stark contrast to the complexity of my emotions. As I watched my daughter chase after her brother, a pang of sadness hit me. How did we get here? What went wrong? Returning home, the house felt colder, emptier. Laura was in the kitchen, her posture rigid, her eyes avoiding mine. I approached her cautiously, hoping to bridge the growing chasm between us. Laura, can we talk? She glanced up, her expression guarded. About what, Mike? About us. About what's been happening. I know things are tough right now, but we need to find a way through this together. Her eyes hardened, and she let out a bitter laugh. Together? You want to talk about us when you're the one who's been ignoring me for months? I felt a surge of defensiveness. I've been trying to support the family, to keep everything together. Maybe you should focus on your own issues instead of blaming me for everything. Her demeanor shifted from defensive to outright hostile. Support? You call spending all your time at work supporting the family? What about emotional support, huh? You're too busy being the perfect husband to notice what's really going on. The tension between us was palpable, the unspoken accusations hanging in the air. I took a deep breath, striving to remain calm. Laura, I'm trying to understand. If there's something you need, something you're struggling with, I want to help. She scoffed, turning away. Help? You don't know how to help. You don't even know what you're dealing with. Frustration welled up inside me, threatening to spill over. Maybe if you communicated better, we wouldn't be in this mess. Her silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the verbal sparring that had become our new normal. I realized that no amount of reasoning was going to break through her walls. The trust that once formed the foundation of our marriage was eroding, replaced by suspicion and resentment. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every interaction, searching for answers. The image of Laura and Ethan at the studio haunted me, but there were still unanswered questions. Why Ethan? What was the true nature of their relationship? Determined to uncover the truth, I decided to confront Laura one more time, this time with undeniable evidence. I knew it was a risk, but I couldn't continue living in uncertainty. Gathering my thoughts, I approached her the next morning. Laura, we need to talk. I have something to show you. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of fear and defiance intertwined. What is it? I took a deep breath, pulling out my phone. These are the messages between you and Ethan. I know there's something going on, and I need the truth. Her composure shattered in an instant. You found those? How dare you invade my privacy? I felt a mix of anger and sorrow. I did this because I care about our marriage, about our family. I deserve to know what's happening. Tears welled up in her eyes as she struggled to maintain her facade. It's not what you think, Mike. Ethan and it's complicated. Complicated? You're cheating on me with someone you've been babysitting our kids' friends? How is that complicated? My voice cracked with emotion. She took a step back, her facade finally crumbling. I didn't want to hurt you. I was lonely, and Ethan was there for me. It just happened. Before I could respond, Ethan walked into the room, his presence adding another layer of tension. Mike, Laura, we need to calm down. This isn't the time or place. I turned to him, my eyes blazing with a mix of hurt and anger. Calm down? You two have been sneaking around behind my back. How do you expect me to stay calm? Ethan looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. Mike, please, let's not make this worse. Laura and I made a mistake, but we want to work things out. Work things out? By betraying our marriage? I felt the room closing in, the weight of betrayal suffocating me. I trusted both of you. Laura reached out, her voice trembling. I never meant for it to go this far. We can fix this, Mike. Please. I stepped back, the realization of the shattered trust hitting me hard. I don't know if we can, Laura. I don't know if I even want to. The room was thick with unspoken emotions, the air heavy with the aftermath of betrayal. I felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the marriage but for the person I thought I knew so well. The confidence and protectiveness I had always embodied seemed to wane, replaced by vulnerability and pain. As I left the room, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. The twists and turns of our lives had led us to this breaking point, and the future was uncertain. The man I was, the loving husband and father, felt lost in the chaos of deception and heartbreak. All I knew was that the path forward would be fraught with challenges, and the once unbreakable family hearth we had built was now teetering on the edge. The days that followed our heated confrontation were a relentless storm of emotions. Laura and Ethan seemed to be spiraling further into their own turmoil, while I struggled to maintain any semblance of normalcy for the sake of our children. Every interaction felt like walking on eggshells, each word laden with unspoken tension and unresolved anger. One evening, after putting the kids to bed, I decided to take a moment for myself. I needed to clear my mind, to find some semblance of peace amidst the chaos. I grabbed my jacket and headed out for a long walk, hoping the solitude would offer some clarity. The night air was cool, the streets quiet except for the occasional distant sound of traffic. As I walked, my thoughts churned, questions without answers, doubts that refused to dissipate. Halfway through my walk, I received a text from Jake, my friend who had helped me with Laura's phone. The message was brief but alarming: need to talk. Urgent. My heart skipped a beat. What could Jake have discovered now? I decided to head back home, urgency propelling me forward. When I arrived, the house was dark, the silence oppressive. I found Jake in the garage, his expression serious. Mike, we need to talk, he said, motioning for me to sit. I sat down, anxiety gnawing at me. What's going on, Jake? Did you find something else? He nodded, pulling out his phone. I did some more digging into Ethan. Turns out, he's not just a friend. He's involved in some shady business, something that could put both of you in danger. My mind raced. What do you mean? How is that related to Laura? Jake took a deep breath. Ethan has been using his relationship with Laura to gain access to your home and personal information. I think he might be blackmailing her, or worse, manipulating her for his own gain. The room spun as the pieces began to fall into place. Laura's erratic behavior, the secret meetings, it all made a twisted sort of sense now. But why? And how deep was Ethan's involvement? Before I could respond, Laura walked into the garage, her presence startling me. "What's going on here?" she demanded, her eyes darting between Jake and me. Jake looked uneasy. "Laura, Mike needs to know the truth about Ethan." Her face paled, a flicker of fear crossing her features. "What are you talking about?" I stood up, feeling a mix of rage and concern. "Laura, Jake found out that Ethan has been using your relationship with him for his own purposes." "Is that true?" She took a step back, her facade finally cracking completely. "Mike, it's not what you think. Ethan, he was trying to help me." "Ethan?" I echoed, turning to Jake. "Is he dangerous?" Jake nodded. "I've seen some of the things he's involved in. This isn't just a fling, there's something much darker at play." Laura's shoulders slumped, her bravado gone. "Mike, please, listen to me. Ethan is manipulating me. I thought I could handle it, but I was wrong." I felt a surge of conflicting emotions: anger at her for hiding the truth, relief that there might be an explanation, and fear for our family's safety. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She looked down, tears welling in her eyes. "I was ashamed. I didn't want to ruin our marriage. I thought I could keep it under control, but Ethan..." Before she could finish, Ethan himself appeared in the doorway, his expression a mix of desperation and menace. "Mike, Laura, we need to calm down. This isn't helping anyone." I took a step forward, my protective instincts kicking in. "What do you want, Ethan? Why are you doing this?" He smirked, a sinister glint in his eyes. "I'm just here to make sure things go smoothly. Laura and I have a lot to discuss, and I suggest you stay out of it." Before I could respond, Ethan lunged forward, grabbing Laura's arm. "Don't listen to him, Mike. You have no idea what's really going on." I reached out, trying to pull her away, but he held firm. "Laura, please, let's talk this through." Laura looked between us, her resolve wavering. "Mike, Ethan is dangerous. He's been threatening me to stay silent about our arrangement. I didn't want to involve you, but things have gotten out of control." Ethan's demeanor shifted from hostile to calculating. "If you don't cooperate, there will be consequences. Think carefully about your next move." The gravity of his words sank in. This wasn't just about infidelity anymore, it was about the safety and integrity of our family. I felt a surge of determination. "Enough, Ethan. Whatever you think you're doing, it stops now." He laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "We'll see about that." As he turned and left the garage, the weight of the situation pressed down on me. Laura approached, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and desperation. "Mike, please, we need to find a way out of this. I don't want Ethan to hurt us." I took her hands in mine, feeling the tremors of her fear. "We'll get through this together. I promise." But deep down, I knew the road ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. The man I once trusted was now a direct threat to our family's safety, and Laura's betrayal had opened a Pandora's box of complications I hadn't anticipated. My role as the confident protector was now more crucial than ever, but the emotional toll was immense. The balance I had maintained was shattered, and rebuilding it would require every ounce of strength and resilience I possessed. As we stood there, united by a newfound resolve, I realized that the twists and turns of our lives were far from over. The true battle was just beginning, and I was determined to face it head-on, for the sake of my family and the life we had built together.